So we only know you as the man.
The man.
Me too. I know. No name, no nothing.
Name, but I like it.
Yeah.
Because he can be anything.
Yeah, your character is very duplicitous. We don't know whether he's good or bad.
The rest of it.
Yeah.
Wow, there's a lot of stuff coming.
What can you tease us a little bit without spoiling too much about what we can see with your character?
Whoa, okay, so what I like the most about my character is the fact that he's feeding out of people's weaknesses, but not in an obvious way. What I'm trying to say is like, let's say that the man could be your best friend. And when I say best friend, is like sometimes like our true best friends, it's the one that tells us stuff about us that we don't like to hear sometimes. Mm-hmm. You know, like they pointed out, like, you're doing this and this wrong. Or sometimes it just raises the question, like, okay, what do you would do if this and this and this happens? And sometimes, I mean, as an audience, it would be like, I mean, he's right? So he's just raising the question, and why would that affect anything? Mm-hmm. But it does, you know, and that's the subtle way to manipulate a situation, and it's like just like a lawyer would do in a court. So it's like, what I like about this version is that it's not the evil one. I mean, the scene that you saw in the pilot is it's the closest thing you will see from him, like as being the devil, you know, like the evil way. Everything from here, he's like a normal guy, a normal dude. He will be around the corner to help you when you fall. Yeah. And then he will be engaging in a conversation, and suddenly you're doing exactly what he wants. You know, that's what I like about the character. Answering to your question, it's the fact that it's real. It could be anyone. That's why he's the man and not the devil, because what he represents, it's more important than actually what it is. Yeah.
The way that your character is presented in the pilot, it almost reminded me of Al Pacino's character in Devil's Advocate, because at first he's very benign, but you know that there's something else. You see that like twinkle in his eye. Yeah, exactly. There's a plan. So, and there's something that happens in the pilot towards the end that makes me question, you know, what your motivations are, and especially your origins, because we obviously see you falling down from the sky. So I'm very anxious to see what your origins are.
All right for that. Tune in.
Who is like your counterpart in terms of the good? Like, who's going to be your main nemesis?
Well, there's going to be a lot of twists, and I would say the first part of the season, you will be 100% sure that you know what's going on. Like 100% sure. Even as I was reading, I was like, I know what this is. So, and then there's a huge twist. And what the biggest twist is the fact that the perspective of good and evil shifts. So, what you thought it was right, it's wrong. What you thought it was wrong, it's completely right. And it's interesting to see my character in the midst of this thing. So another thing that I like about the show is the fact that there's no good and evil. There's no right or wrong. It's all circumstances. We're all product of our own circumstances. Like, you know, you could be an assassin. You can be a killer if you would be pushed to something like that. Like, let's say your own family gets killed. You become someone different than you truly are, you know, like your nature. So, like I said, what I like about this show is the fact that he doesn't separate, like, clearly everything that is good and wrong. We're all fruit of, you know, product of circumstances. And that being said, in answering to your question, we're going to have a clear idea of what his goal is in terms of the opposite of the, let's say, the good, and then it shifts completely. And you, as an audience, you get like, what should I believe now? What should I believe now? And it's really interesting.
Do you know a lot more about the man than we do?
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's really cool. It's really cool because I think the way that they're writing my character, and it's not random that he's not. I mean, we can say that he's the devil in terms of the what they're using from the Book of Revelation, but for this story, he's the man. And when I say the man, is like he acts and behaves exclusively out of our own human fears and weaknesses. So he's not going to be he doesn't have any special power. He doesn't do like a voodoo thing and controls your mind. Never. He allows you. There's a free will all the time. You know, so he only uses a human resources. You know, there's no superpower going on to control and manipulate because he's not allowed to interfere. So that being said, there's other type of tricks that he uses, like human stuff, resources that he uses that is going to be revealed as we go.
Does the man know what the message is and he wants to stop it?
No, he knows what's the final outcome, but he doesn't know how to get there. And he goes, he figures out as he goes.
Have you had any like really cool fight scenes?
Oh, I'm sorry?
Have you had any really cool fight scenes yet?
No. I mean, yes and no. Yes, because he sometimes he uses violence, and no, because he doesn't use his violence. He doesn't touch anything. He manipulates stuff in order to happen, and then he's right there to watch everything happen. And that's spooky and creepy at the same time, you know, because he knows they created everything, and he's just there staring, and it's cool. So it's a manipulative thing. It's a psychic kind of, but not supernatural.
Was that what drew you to
Yes, you have to say something. You're so beautiful.
And I'm going to ask you a question.
No.
You are a good man. I'm trying to see from you.
True.
I can feel it. You used to do better.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, thank you so much.
So is that what drew you to the role, his mysteriousness and his ability to manipulate for his own end? Was that something that drew you to this character when you read the script?
No. What it was truly was the fact that evil was not it's not being written as the superpower, superstitional and super over reality. His only resource is reality. It's human weaknesses. So anyone could do what the man does, and I like that. What is different about him is he doesn't feel like a human. So he's not afraid. He's not fearless. He's fearless. He does a lot of stuff that is not human.
Yeah.
You know, but his resources are exclusively from this planet, as opposed to all the messengers that they all have a gift now. So it's like 5, probably more, against 1, probably more.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Enjoy your day, guys.
Thank you. I need to know, who is the man and where is he from? I'm just kidding. You don't have to sweat.
He's the devil.
He's the devil.
He just said he wasn't the devil.
Ah, well.
He's a tricky
You
guy.
can't believe the devil.
He almost has like a quality kind of like in Dr. Faustus, where he's trying to kind of warn him against the evil stuff, but still luring people down that path. Is that how he is?
He's there's no one better than Diogo Morgado for this part because he brings such a level of humanity to this role. The truth is, and I think we've talked about this a lot with the other writers in the show, there's arguably no character in mythology or in history that has a greater inferiority complex than the devil. And the way that Diogo portrays that is so satisfying because he is either vulnerable at times deeply and you feel for him actually, or he's terrifying and he acts out in ways that only the devil himself could or ever would. So it's a really extraordinary performance for him. We couldn't be happier to have him on board.
For Eoghan, what sparked this creative process in creating this show? Because there's so many dynamics to this. I mean, you have like ordinary people who have been kind of chosen. So what was your thought process in creating this show?
You know, I think it comes from my background in growing up in Arkansas, where, you know, I was interested in sort of the religious background of where I'm from, and then I was also interested in science, and I was interested in kind of ways to talk about them both that weren't necessarily mutually exclusive. So it's about all of these different people who, with different perspectives and different backgrounds and different wants and different crises going on in their lives, all being sort of united in the search for meaning, despite all of these differences.
So now everything is starting to culminate. I'm from the South as well, so I know this huge Bible Belt down there. So,
where are you from exactly?
Georgia.
All right,
Columbus,
Tulsa, Oklahoma's in the house too.
Columbus, Georgia. Yeah. So with the show, it seems like everything is just leading everyone to one central location, and it's Houston. So is there any kind of significance that you can tease us about for that season, for the significance of Houston?
Well, we knew we wouldn't want the end of the world to happen in Arkansas or Oklahoma, so we had Texas was fair game.
I mean, you know, we can also say that Rose is there too.
That's right. Rose is a very important force in drawing them together, and while Anna Diop, who's a tremendous actress, bless her heart, spends most of her time with her eyes closed in the pilot, she's very much awake in episode 2 and beyond, and a very important part of our team of messengers, especially when it comes to informing them all for the first time, whether they choose to believe it or not, and whether they're particularly thrilled about it or not. This is who you are now. You are now angels of the apocalypse, and this is your new task at hand, to find and stop the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse before it's too late to prevent the beginning of the end. And so that's a season 1 mission for them, and it's something that some will push back against harder than others, and we draw a lot of drama from that. But ultimately, the process of them all getting together on the same page is not only for, you know, the greater good of humankind, but it also pays great dividends in each of their individual lives, because all of those problems that Eoghan so beautifully set up in the pilot don't just disappear in episode 2. In fact, some of them have gotten worse. I mean, you saw what happened with Peter. He doesn't understand the power of his own strength yet and his gift, and someone dies as a result. That just doesn't go away overnight in TV terms. That's going to be something that haunts him the same way the rest of these crises that affect our characters will.
Well, go ahead.
Yeah, since good and evil, devil versus angel, would you say that one of the draws of this is that it doesn't just focus on black and white, it's more looks into the grays as well?
100%, because as I've heard Diogo say, and as we've said repeatedly, you know, this is a show about choices and the choices that we make, and you know, it's most people, whatever your belief system may or may not be, are familiar at least with the story of Noah and a vengeful God saying, I've had it with humankind, I'm going to flood the world for 40 days and 40 nights. This is a little bit of a different interpretation of the book of Revelation, in that it's as if that higher power is saying, look, I'm unhappy again. It doesn't take much to look around the world or watch the cable news and figure out that things aren't the greatest. But I'm going to give everyone choices, and there may be darker choices that some choose, which may put them at odds with the messengers, and then there are the messengers themselves who have to make the choice of whether or not to follow this new destiny that they have. But there's always layers of gray in there, and even the devil himself, who is very evil, I mean, ultimately the very definition of, for many, many people, we may actually find ourselves strange bedfellows at times with the devil himself. And so, again, exploring that gray is something that is very important to all of us.
Well, I love the aspect of having the man fall from the sky, just as when they say in the Bible about Lucifer falling from heaven. So I think that's a very interesting way to present him as like an outer space being, instead of like some guy who came from Earth or down under or whatever.
Almost as you might say, as if he has been cast down a second time.
Exactly. So I thought that was a very interesting aspect when I saw him coming down.
What kind of supernatural powers are we going to see from him early on?
From the devil, or from,
because he's so powerful.
Not just his conversation.
He doesn't have to do as much initially. Yeah. You know, he can just manipulate people.
One of his greatest strengths is his ability to manipulate your worst fears and insecurities. So it's as if he's able to look at everyone here at the table and go, oh yeah, I know what bothers you, and now I'm going to use that against you. And so a big learning curve for the messengers comes through the recognition of that, and then having to gird themselves against that, which is tricky to say the least.
Have you planned out for multiple seasons ahead of time? Should it get successful?
We have indeed. One of the greatest things, one of many great things about the Book of Revelations in particular is it lends itself very well to television drama and to multiple seasons of television drama, and almost to the point where, you know, when we first went in to talk to the network about what happens next after the pilot, we went in ready for 7 seasons worth of information.
So here's 7 seasons, and they're like,
okay, whoa.
Easy.
But yes, we have great confidence in saying that there are probably as many episodes with this show as there are verses in the Bible. So we look very forward to hopefully telling them for many years to come.
Well, I'm looking forward to the rest of the season.
Well, thank you.
Did you develop this for the CW, or did it go around to the networks?
I wrote it as a spec initially, and so, you know, we did shop around to various places, but it felt like a really natural fit with the CW and their serialized storytelling and their supernatural storytelling.
And they've been tremendously supportive from the beginning. I can't imagine or think of another experience where a first season show in particular has enjoyed such a high level of creative sync with the network and the studio. You know, everyone's so deeply invested in a show's success. You get a lot of chefs stirring the pot often, but we all seem to have the same recipe for this one, and everyone enjoyed the way it tastes. So
no one was allergic.
No one was allergic. Well, let's just stop that right now. But very, very satisfying, and I think also the CW has been very vocal about wanting to broaden their audience a little bit. On the one hand, they do want their core audience to watch, and I believe that the show will draw them. But I also think that, you know, some of those younger kids and their parents can be captivated and drawn into this show as well. Because like I said out there, it is a very satisfying ride, and it is our job first and foremost to entertain people. I think we've done a good job of that. And I say this as a sap, there's at least one moment in every one of these episodes that kind of yanks your heart out a little bit in all the best ways, and it's something that we're very proud of. You know, we said to the writers on day one, bring in a picture of the people you care about the most. And in part that was to cover up an ugly pillar in the corner of the room that we didn't like, but it was mostly there because the only reason these apocalyptic end-day stories really matter at the end of the day is because they represent the loss of the people we love and care about the most. And so that always kept us honest. We would stick with the mythology, we would draw from the mythology, but we would also look at those pictures and go, hey, remember your mom. Hey, remember your dog. Whatever it is, whatever matters most to you, that's why the show really tugs at you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Excellent.
And there are some very interesting things that happen with your characters separately. Obviously, you have new powers now. You've been chosen. You found out something terrible about your wife. And then you've had a vision of Anna Diop's character, Rose. So what will we see in the upcoming episodes about you going to Houston? Because I think that's where we kind of left off with your character in the pilot.
Yeah, I mean, he's already in Houston.
Yeah.
Everyone else, by the end of the pilot, is kind of heading that way, too. Unbeknownst to them, the reason why, but they're all just, for one reason or another, heading that way. You will see him trying to understand what that vision was. And that's kind of how he progresses gift-wise throughout the season, is constantly, you know, they just happen, and him trying to figure out what they are, and them eventually as a group trying to use them to stop these things and go on these missions that they have to go on. What's great about the show is it stays very grounded in those personal stories that we see that are set up in the beginning. So the things with the wife will come back into play, and you know, it's this, you know, their lives don't stop because they've suddenly been destined to save the world.
Exactly.
Their personal lives still continue, and it keeps the show very grounded, I think.
Do the messengers all have different messages? Because yours seems very specific, and it doesn't seem like that got communicated to the others.
Indeed, he's the only one who kind of got a message like that.
Do the messages kind of define their roles?
Yes, yeah, I guess. Yeah, I mean, everyone else wakes up after the death. Everyone else wakes up and they don't know what's happened. But Joshua is the only one who does, and it's a very tough thing for him because his whole belief system kind of comes crashing down. So it kind of sets him. I'll just speak for him, but it sets him on a very dark path that gets a lot darker.
Well, for your character, Peter, he gets, a really rude awakening when he's confronted at the party, and then his powers obviously manifest, and it surprises you, and then, you already had like a foster home that you're from, so there's a troubled past. So how will your character progress in the upcoming season?
For Peter, at the beginning, it's all about control because he lost it at the beginning of episode 1. He killed this kid. And so he finds that later it's very internal, and then it's projected outwards through his strength. So coming from a horrible past, foster homes, a previous suicide attempt, he's just emotionally unstable. I mean, he's not like insane or anything, but he's not strong emotionally. So for him, it all comes down to control, finding that kind of a family with the messengers. He becomes more grounded. Yeah.
So what was it most about each of your characters that attracted you to take this role?
He's just very passionate. It was funny when I don't have this the faith that he has. I have faith, but it's a different sort of faith that Joshua has. So it was interesting to come from that and approach this, and all the research I was doing on these modern day preachers. There's a guy in New York called Carl Lentz who wears like a leather jacket and is all tattooed and has a shaved head. In his church, Hillsong. These guys, they're so passionate that I would sit there for hours watching this guy talk, and even though we have differing beliefs, I was like captivated by just his passion, and that's really what drew me to Joshua. Is this passion and this drive that he has. I think that's where I could relate to him. I had no idea the dark path it was going to end up taking, so that was quite lovely too. Because when we shot the pilot, the stuff with the wife wasn't there. So when we originally did it, there was no wife, and we actually shot that when we went back to shoot the series once we got picked up. So that was all brand new stuff. So it was a very...
Surprise!
Yes, it was an interesting surprise when I got that phone call saying, it's not your baby.
Does he continue to preach with the new message, or is that part of his life?
You will see him kind of ebb and flow back and forth between the church, and it's a really tough struggle that he goes on, trying to figure out, the father that he loved and believed in, whether he was wrong, whether, the way I have been raised has been all lies, and you will see him come back to the church. Yes, I guess is the simplest way to say that without giving anything away.
Did you enjoy performing the scenes as the pastor?
I did, yeah. It was I come from theater, so it was very theatrical, and that was the first scene I did, shooting the pilot. So it was like being home in that sense, just walking on the stage in front of 200 extras, and yeah, I had a blast. And they were very lovely and let me riff and let me improvise, and so yeah, it was the most fun. Yeah.
For your character, Peter, were you a swimmer as well, or did you?
I actually swam
Essentially me, I'm his body double.
Yeah. It just CG'd my face. No. I actually swam competitively for 11 years.
Oh, wow.
So that was actually one thing when I first read the script. Oh, this is awesome. I can actually do that. The swimming, not just the acting.
Yeah. So what was it about Peter's character that really attracted you to?
The internal struggle. I always found that amazing. The first draft of the pilot, which is quite a bit different from what you guys saw today, because obviously the script goes through changes. But I just loved the script. Immediately within 42 and a half minutes, I loved each character. And it was amazing that within such a short period of time and with such a big cast, you distinctly know each one of them and you really feel for them. And I really connected with Peter. I thought, wow, what a rough background and a childhood to come from. And I just found that really interesting. I was like, dive into that head first. That was, yeah.
And he's a swimmer.
Yeah, and he's a swimmer. I can do that.
Dive in head first. Yeah.
Okay, guys, we're gonna wrap.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Okay.
I'm looking for on your feet, though.
I know. This happened pretty much a few weeks after I was killed.
And they had to scoop you up.
I told them, I let them know. I said, guys, you cut me off, I'm gonna I'll be on a competing network.
What interested you about this role?
You know, honestly, I think that at that time, I was really looking to just do something. You spend, 2 years doing something like Revolution, and that becomes your family, the crew, the cast. It's a little bit, it can be like a breakup a little bit. So you need to get right back out there, and the script was just, it was interesting because it wasn't so much, the pilot from the beginning wasn't so much about angels or the apocalypse. You knew there was this event, there was this mysterious man that landed on Earth, and then these 5 characters, they die, and then they're brought back to life. But even within that, you get to see that they're in their own situations that are very real, that we all kind of face. So just because Raul starts hearing things, it's not like all of a sudden he has wings and he's like fighting people, I'm an angel, but no, he's a fugitive. He's trying to get away, and he's bleeding, and he can die. And what interested me about the script was just how human they all were. And it's like different walks of life, something there for everybody. And I was like, wow, how are they going to kind of put this together? That's why.
So, what have you seen in both of your characters that has surprised you and that you relate to the most as you've gone in the episodes and stuff? What is it about your character that you felt a connection to, but also surprised you?
Yeah. I think with Rose, she's extraordinarily empathetic to people, and that was something that I loved to play, and something that I'd like to be more of. And also, she was thrown into this kind of leader position, right? So she has to deal with these 5 strangers who she's, of course, strangers of herself, but she's just thrown into this position to have to guide them. And I think that was something that surprised me, was just constantly having to ground them. At one point, I looked at them like my kids, it was like constantly just trying to keep them on track and fulfill this destiny.
Just call us kids.
But is she a messenger? Because we don't see that little eye adjustment thing with her. We just see her get shot at the beginning. So is she something totally different from that?
No, she is a messenger. She's just unlike the messenger. She has the gift to understand what it is that's going on. And throughout the season, you'll kind of see more of that. Yeah.
About how long do you think it is before all the messengers come together?
Oh, not long.
You'll see them get together quickly.
Yeah, can we say when?
Episode 2.
Episode 2.
Spoiler.
When do you each get to have scenes with Diogo as the man?
Oh, I don't know. Episode 5. No, I'm just kidding.
It actually is different
Is
for
it?
each.
Oh, I thought you were going to say it actually is. I don't know. I just saw number 5.
Have we seen all the messengers in the pilot? Or are there more?
I can neither confirm or deny that. But it's a great show. I think there's going to be something there for everybody to I think you can relate. Kids are going to relate to Peter and how he's being bullied and how he has to run away, and then
Single mothers to
fugitives as well. And hopefully no one relates to that one.
Well, that's totally my life.
Yeah?
I I pick up fugitives all the time.
Nice.
There it is. Something for everyone.
Well, I'm so looking forward to this season. It looks so interesting. I saw the full pilot already, and it's just amazing.
Don't say those things.
Just
They're recording everything. They're going to play it back for him.
Conspiracy.
Was the chemistry there right on the pilot right away?
No.
I hate her right now. I've always hated her.
We're acting.
She smells bad. She thinks she's so beautiful. Don't like her.
You know, it's funny. He came in when we were shooting the pilot. We'd already started shooting, and they still didn't have an Alan. And I kept telling him, like, guys, who's Alan? Like, who is he going to be? And they kept changing their relationship. Whether it was they used to be old lovers, co-workers, they're in a relationship, and they really. I feel like I love where our characters are. You know, that we have like this kind of banter where we work together, and as scientists researching, you do get really close. You spend hours and hours together. But working on a project that you have full faith in and so much belief in, and so
well, I was just telling the story. When I got cast, I went in. I got a call at 4:30 to go on St. Patrick's Day, by the way. 4:30 to go in to be somewhere at 5, and I was way on the other side of town, and I wasn't going to make it. And I said no. I was like, no, I'm not going to do it. And then I was like, fine, whatever, I'll go. So I get in my car, I drive across town, I audition, and then find out, oh, you're going to have to leave like tomorrow, almost. And so I go on tape, they send me, they're like, okay, you book it, you got to fly out. And I was like, I can't go there now, I have to go to Miami. My parents are having their 40th anniversary, and that only happens once in every 40 years, so I have to do that. Yeah. So I flew into Miami, went to their 40th year anniversary, then left there and flew into Albuquerque, and I hadn't slept at all. Flew into Albuquerque because I had to be there for a meeting with this one who I'd never met before, and the director.
To shoot the next day.
To shoot, yeah. And so we had never met and we had never talked, and she didn't know who was being cast. I had no idea who was in it. And so I show up, and then this is when I meet her. And she starts babbling all the science stuff, and I'm like, hey, listen, lady, I just showed up because they told me to be here. I don't know anything. And she just gave me a science lesson.
It was kind of like we were already in the roles, you know. It was very much so. I'd been there, I'd been shooting, and I'd been anticipating kind of that missing piece for me in the pilot. You know, so much of the pilot is us and our job, and Vera's so passionate about what she does and being a scientist and the project that they're working on, and so that missing piece I was so excited to find out. And I love the banter, and I love the chemistry, and I think that it adds a little bit of lightness in between, especially what's to come, you know, but it also allows you a little bit of an aspect into her personal life, whereas normally she has her guard up very much so in front of other people.
Yeah, I think it was there. I think we got along very, very quickly, and then of course we went.
I'm basically won him over with my dance moves, but
she can't
that's
dance
okay.
at all.
I can dance.
Not even a little bit. Not even a little bit can she dance. Not even like a little bit. It's the worst.
So you're going to go on a quest for your son. Is that something that Alan's going to accompany her on?
You know, I think that the through line, more for Alan, if I may speak for you, is this meteor. You know, he obviously doesn't know about Vera's personal life, and we find that out in the pilot. Nobody knows about Vera's personal life. It's something that really drew me to her. I understood why she went into science. I understood why she was so passionate and didn't take no for an answer. You know, if somebody you loved was kidnapped and you lost them and you never got any answers for years and years, it makes sense to me why she went into science, why there is no not, you know, figuring this out, and so, you know, it's interesting to have such a big story and to be a messenger and to have an impending apocalypse, but also to have a personal life. What did I say over there? What was my line?
You said,
you know, just because the world is ending doesn't mean that your life...
Just because life is ending doesn't mean that life is ending.
No.
That's not
basically, just because there's an impending apocalypse and your life might end doesn't mean that your life ends. You have to still... That spark and that video drives her for the whole season. I mean, it was there in every heartbeat of Vera, everything. You know, it drove her to be even more passionate and to really understand what was happening. because there's a lot she's not going to understand. You know, you're bringing in a faith realm, if you will, into a girl who's a scientist, and it's just not something that she believes, and there's no such thing as no proof or no answers.
I mean, to kind of get back to your question, I think that based on what you see in the pilot, I think it would be a safe choice to bet that Alan would fight for her, that Alan would be on her side. But you're still betting, still gambling. That's it.